Hello chess friends and welcome to Jozarov chess channel and welcome to the absolute shocker of the FIDE World Cup in 2023 that's going on now in Azerbaijan. In the round 4 of this amazing chess event we had really a beautiful encounter. We have now the clash between top GM and chess prodigy from Germany Vincent Keymer and top GM and the strongest player in the world Magnus Carlsen. And what to say about this game? This game could be written in many chess history books. This is a really important game because if you haven't followed maybe this World Cup so far, the concept of this tournament is a little bit different. It's a bracket system, it's a knockout stage. You play two classical games, and if these games end with a draw, then you have to play additional rapid games, maybe then afterwards also the Armageddon game. So it's really dynamic format. If you lose one game, then you have really difficult quest to get back into the event. So in my opinion, the first game can be already almost a decisive game. So let's see now what happened in the first game, because Vincent Keymer had a great chance because he played with the white pieces against Magnus Carlsen. So let's see what happened. Pay good attention. In my opinion, really a beautiful chess game. So with the white pieces, Vincent opened with the move d4. We have knight to f6 by Magnus, c4, e6, and now after we move knight to c3, here Vincent Keymer is maybe inviting Magnus Carlsen to go into the Nimzo Indian defense with the move bishop to b4. But Magnus plays now the move d5, goes into normal structures of the Queen's Gambit decline, and now usually white trades off the pawns in the center of the board, releases simply the pressure in the center. White doesn't want to have such a dynamic position. Therefore, move e takes d5. The position is now more static. You see, it's not so dangerous anymore to play this kind of a structure in the center of the board. And basically, this is now a positional battle. It's a positional struggle, so you probably not see so many dirty tactics out of the Queen's Gambit decline exchange variation. After move e takes d5, we have bishop to g5. Now we have bishop to b4. And both players played now very dangerously with both of these bishops, but we have to say it, Magnus Carlsen's pin with the move bishop to b4 against the knight on c3, it's the so-called absolute pin. So the knight is really immobile, you cannot move it because you're under fire by the bishop. It's an attack against the king. On the other hand, white's pin against the knight on f6, it's not an absolute pin because we still can move the knight. I'm telling you this because many times in these types of structures there are even some wild tactics with knight to e4 sacking the queen, maybe knight to c3, bishop to c3 and similar stuff. So be careful. There are many dirty traps that can happen in these types of structures if white and black are not playing the game carefully. But as I said, so far Magnus played this really dangerous approach with the move bishop to b4. So now they're pinning each other. So far really a beautiful position now for both sides. In the game e3 played by Vincent Keymer, very important move, keeping the structure solid, but also very important that you already brought your bishop out, so it's not locked by your own pawn chain. If you would have stayed here with the bishop on c1 or d2, then it would be a bad piece, simply paralyzed by its own pawn structure. So far, e3, good move. h6, we have bishop to f4. Interesting idea here by Vincent Keymer, because if you play bishop to h4, then I think you allow black here to go into wilder lines, maybe with the move g5. You play something like bishop to g3, and now even h5 in some lines is possible, then knight to e4. I really don't want to show you now too much theory, but I guarantee you many more sidelines are playable now for both sides. And if you don't want to learn too much theory, I think bishop to f4 is a more solid approach, because okay, here Magnus Carlsen also played now the move bishop to f5, again playing sort of a symmetrical way here also by Magnus Carlsen. And basically in these types of structures, what you're trying to do from white's and from black's perspective is to occupy here the e5 and also the c5 square. So from white's perspective, we want to hop on both of the squares. On the other hand, from black's perspective, we want to hop on e4, but also here on the c4. These are clear targets, these are clear weaknesses in both positions. So after we move bishop to f5, we have bishop to d3. Vincent doesn't want to tolerate this dangerous bishop on f5. Bishop to d3, queen to d3, c6, knight to e2, and now after move knight to h5, bishop to e5, played by Vincent Keymer, which is a good I think maneuver by the bishop, because if you play f6 you cannot kick away the bishop further from this active square, then you get hit here with the move queen to g6. So that's why Magnus played now the move knight to d7. But now a beautiful choice here by Vincent, h3. Amazing move. It's a tricky move. Many of us would fall for this, would go simply into this line, knight to e5, grabbing the bishop. It's a powerful bishop. Why shouldn't we give up our knight for opponent's bishop? It's a good choice, but actually White could have already many positional problems. For instance, after move knight to e5. Look at this. D takes e5 is an immediate threat to trap the knight with the move g4, and you have to now liberate your g7 square in order to get there if you get attacked with the move g4. But now with a simple idea, kingside castling and also black kingside castling, you have amazing attacking chances with this 5 versus 3 pawn majority attack here on the king side. So it's, I think, a dynamic position suddenly on the king side. And even if black doesn't castle on the king side, even if black castles, for instance, on the queen side here, still it doesn't get better in this position, because we will launch then a minority attack. We'll try to split somehow the position in front of black's king if black would have castled on the queen side. So in this imbalanced asymmetrical pawn structures, I think it would be very hard for black to secure the king. So as I said, after move h3, very tricky position here by Vincent Keymer. Magnus is not falling for this, and now Vincent retreats. So he forced the knight out of this active square h5, and now he's still keeping his bishop very active. Nice really opening theory here by Vincent Keymer. Kingside castling a3, kicking away the bishop to a5, castling rook to e8. As I said in this video already, the main goal, the main strategic idea is to fix somehow your position around the square e4, as we said, also c4, from white's perspective, c5, e5. In the game, we have rook to c1 by Vincent Keymer, we have queen to e7, and now b4, and now after move bishop to d8, Vincent is trying now to apply this other idea that we have talked about already in this video. Vincent is now trying the so-called minority attack. This minority attack is an attack by these two pawns against these 3 pawns of blacks. What we are trying in some lines to do, what we love to get here, is this kind of a position where we trade off maybe the b and a pawn for our opponent's b and a pawn, and get maybe this kind of a position where black is left now with a backward pawn on c6, but also with the weak square on c5. So that's the result that you want to get out of the minority attack. So that's now Vincent Keymer's big plan here on the queen side. Magnus Carlsen goes after move bishop to d8 here, knight to g3 by Vincent Keymer, trying to occupy the f5 square. And now Magnus played, I think, a beautiful move, bishop to c7. Positional pin, sort of, if you move the knight like Vincent Keymer did here, knight to f5, hitting the queen. First, Magnus Carlsen simplified the game by trading off the bishops, which comes, of course, with a check. You have to react, and now, after move queen to e6, the knight retreats, and now, again, we have the same issues. The strategy didn't change, even after a couple of trades of bishops here, even after a couple of trades of pawns. Still, we're trying knight to e4, knight to c4, knight to c5, or knight to e5. These are the, as I said, the clear targets for both sides. Queen to d6, very tricky move here by Magnus Carlsen, because let's see, maybe you're playing a bad move like rook to b1, then knight to h5, very dangerous. After knight to g3, f takes g3, then you could be left again with a weakness here on e3 with a backward pawn, which is again a structural weakness. So it's not working. So that's why king to g1. Vincent gets out of this potential mess here on this diagonal. In the game a5, Magnus is undermining the potential minority attack that we have talked about. He's trying to somehow avoid this kind of a position. Vincent Keymer plays now queen to b1. He's trying still to support his attack, but now after move knight to b6, as I said, Magnus is trying to hit the square c4. Now Vincent Keymer took, but it's only a temporarily pawn sacrifice, because still the a5 pawn is weak, and now also the a3 pawn is hanging. In the game queen to b4, Vincent would love now, of course, Magnus Carlsen to take, then he could connect his pawns here on the queen side, but Magnus Carlsen played now rook to a5, and again a beautiful tactic now by Vincent Keymer. He played now a stunning knight to d5, but it's only a temporary win for the pawn. For instance, if you play c takes d5, this wouldn't be good here. Then rook to c4 would happen if you play the knight on c4 was the protector of the queen on d6. You would be forced to trade off now the queens. Okay, you can pick up now this one, but here obviously white would also pick up now the pawn on b7. In this tactical sequence, white would get the pawn and has, I think, again, a solid structure here Also, there is now this isolated pawn in black's position, so it's then a much better continuation here for white. So after move knight to d5, Magnus didn't fall for this. He played now knight to d5. We have queen to c4, but as I said, it's only a temporary loss of pawn here for Magnus. Now he can grab also the pawn on a3, but we have to say it again. Mission accomplished, I think, here for white. This position is not spectacular. This is not really a brutal, I don't know, Mikhail Tal position that we love to see sometimes in chess. This is still a positional battle. This is still a positional struggle. But with the downside for black, that black has here still 2 pawn islands. You see there are 3 disconnected pawns from these other 2 pawns. On the other hand, white's pawn structure is much healthier because the pawns are connected. And still, I think some of these ideas of the minority attack by Vincent Keymer have been applied, because still he can target the c6 weakness, b7 weakness, also the c5 weakness. So he has some plans. I think, as I said, nothing spectacular. Even the engine gives you equal chances for both sides. But I would still feel more comfortable now to play the game from white's perspective, especially because we know our targets here. We know where to attack. Really solid play here by Vincent Keymer. Queen to c5, trading off the queens. Why not? We still have our targets. Nothing dramatically changed, even though we traded off the queens off the board. Of course, the position is not so dynamic anymore, but still Magnus is the one that has to now defend this position. Really, again, good choice here by Vincent. The rook from a to e8, we have knight to f5, we have h5, g4, creating, of course, also some good route for the king. The king could be maybe included in this path, maybe get even to e5 if possible. So the king has to be now used as really an active piece. H takes g4, h takes g4, rook to a2, rook to b1, hitting now the pawn on b7. So you see Vincent has his target, but Magnus has, of course, this counter idea. Rook to a1, rook to a1. Here comes the check, but still the king is slowly but surely getting into the game. We have king to f8, we have g5 by Vincent Keymer, and as I said, I think that white's position is much easier to play, and that's now the pure result of this, because here Magnus Carlsen blundered. Here, big mistake by Magnus Carlsen. He played now the move knight to c7. He had to. It's a must move here for Magnus. He had to play knight to e7. Forcing maybe trades of knights. Even if you try something like knight to d6 to hit the backward pawn on b7, then it's defendable, because you can hit the rook here with the move b6. The knight is protecting still the c6 square. You drop back, and now with the move f6, I think many positional problems can be solved, and this is playable still for both sides. Still maybe slightly better for white, because as I said, it's much harder for black to defend both of these pawns. But after move knight to c7 that Magnus Carlsen played, now Vincent Keymer plays an easy move, knight to d6, attacking simply the weakness. Magnus has to now play the move, has to now defend this position. He doesn't have really good moves. Maybe he could have tried this idea, knight to e6, but it's not helping him out here. This is almost, I wouldn't say immediately a lost position, but one pawn will be taken here by white for sure. Look at this, knight to e6 is of course attacking the rook. Now Magnus could be challenged in this way with rook to f5. This wasn't in the game, but here after rook to f5, how are you going to defend this position? For instance, you try knight to d8 in order to defend the pawn on b7, also the pawn on f7. This is not working, because look at this, a rook to e5. Amazing idea immediately. Delivering a checkmate here on e8. You have to play now knight to e6 again. Now again this pawn is falling, but you don't have to take out the pawn. We just play g6. You cannot take out the pawn because the knight is hanging. Now you have to play something like king to e7. We take the pawn, and now the huge threat is rook to e6, followed with a promotion here on f8. You have to drop back with the rook, but now we take out this pawn, and in my opinion, this is not working. Probably, of course, black will simply take out this one, but look at this. This pawn is weak on c6. Clear target. In a couple of moves, I think it will be taken. It's a devastating, it's a lost position, I think, here for black. Even if you here play something like rook to b1 in order to defend now this pawn, rook to f5 is going to happen simply, and still we have this clear target, the pawn on f7. You can maybe try to include the king into the defense, but now after something like king to e6, e4, and this is again game over here for for black. I think this is something that Magnus Carlsen missed. He played the huge blunder knight to c7, and now here, as we said, Vincent played knight to d6. Magnus tried this idea, g6, and Vincent says thank you, mission accomplished. He took now this really thematic pawn. Of course, it was a huge blunder by Magnus Carlsen, but it's a thematic really problem in this this so-called cards-bound structures of the Queen's Gambit declined exchange variation, where black has many issues. Of course, as I said, it's a huge blunder by Magnus, but it's really unpleasant sometimes to defend the position. So after knight to b7, rook to b1, we have knight to d8, rook to b5, and now again a good choice here by Vincent. Knight to rook takes b5. If you play knight to c6 here, this wouldn't be good. Then after a couple of trades of rooks, knight to e6 solves many positional problems. We hit both of these pawns, and then I think maybe after move knight to c5, black could survive this attack with the 3 versus 2 pawn majority. I still think that white cannot win this game when the knights are on the board, of course, so it's not working. So that's why good choice here by Vincent. Rook to b5, after c takes b5, now knight to c6, we have king to e8, but now after knight to b4, king to e7, now Vincent Keymer plays on his 4 versus 2 pawn majority here in the center of the board and on the king side, and this is now a storm that's coming. This is an unstoppable storm from this point on. I think it's a one-way ticket in white's favor. Only God can save, I think, now Magnus Carlsen. This is, in my opinion, completely winning endgame here for white. So king to d6, king to f3, using the king in the attack. Now Magnus Carlsen got restricted here by Vincent Keymer's pawn, so the knight is really out of game. Magnus Carlsen tried now knight to h5. We have king to f3, knight to g7. Magnus is now repeating moves. Knight to d3, knight to h5, and Magnus tried here, I think, also to trick a little bit Vincent Keymer. Magnus Carlsen is really the endgame beast, the endgame goat. Here, for instance, a huge problem can be if you play the move d5. If you play d5, then, for instance, f6, you take, and then after knight to f6, you could get greedy with the move e5, but now after king to d5 and e takes f6, actually, this is a draw, because then black can pick up the pawn on f6, and now the knight has to hold now this pawn. If, for instance, the king is somehow included in the attack of this pawn, then simple trades of pawns on the g file will happen, and then it's a thematic draw. You cannot, of course, win the game just only with your knight. So really cool idea here by Magnus, but Vincent doesn't care. Vincent plays again his solid chess. He's not risking anything here. When it comes to computer relations, maybe in some lines there are better moves, but who cares? It's always about 3-4 plus here for white. So as I said, only a weird or strange idea by white can save Magnus Carlsen's day. It's completely winning here. So after move king to e3, we have knight to g3. Now d5 is going to happen. Magnus Carlsen drops back. We have king to d4, king to b6. Magnus got challenged this way, knight to e5. What are you going to do? b4, and now a good choice again by Vincent Keymer, knight to f7, because after b3, knight to e5, you cannot push the pawn further. Great calculations here by Vincent. Knight to c4 is going to happen. You get the fork, and you lose another pawn. After knight to e5, knight to e2 was played by Magnus. We have king to e3. Magnus is also getting the king closer, but now here again a beautiful restriction idea by Vincent, not allowing this king to be included and also preventing this pawn move b2. Knight to c3. Vincent pushed the pawn further, and now after move king to c6, e5, Magnus played now king to d5, and in this position Magnus Carlsen resigned. What to say, really amazing game by Vincent. He played it almost perfectly here. Good choice, I think, to go into solid play against Magnus Carlsen, because Magnus can be really devastating also with the black pieces. He can outplay you, he can trick you. Good choice for Vincent Keymer here to play a really solid opening, solid line, not risking in the beginning so much. He got his squares, he got his attacks, he got his opportunities, he got his opponent's weaknesses. We have to say it. We have to mention it was a huge blunder by Magnus Carlsen, but who cares? I think Vincent Keymer doesn't care. He won out a game in classical chess against Magnus Carlsen, one of the greatest chess players of all time. So in my opinion, great accomplishment. We should really congratulate to Vincent Keymer. Really amazing performance today. But Magnus Carlsen has, of course, his game tomorrow with the white pieces, but now the psychological aspect of chess comes, I think, in a good way here for Vincent Keymer, because he's now not so much under pressure. Magnus has to now win the game. We see Vincent is well prepared in opening, so really strange tournament it can already become for Magnus Carlsen. So, okay, I hope that you enjoyed this game. Really interesting ideas of the Queen's Gambit decline exchange variation. If you want to see some other games from this chat event, check out our coverage so far. Here are some games that we have analyzed before, and if you like this content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and what do we say? Chess is the best, of course.